here. So today's going to be a little bit different. I've been wanting to do more podcasts, and as you know, I have been going back to doing more business and investing related stuff on the channel. Instead of splitting it into two, I've kind of brought it back into one just because I'd rather have all of our info kind of one place for people to follow. And I've really been into Bitcoin Cash lately. You guys know I've talked about Bitcoin Cash several times on the channel. It's one of my favorite. For a lot of people, I think it's my favorite risk reward right now. That for normies, it's on Coinbase. They can buy Gemini or most of the major exchanges. And it's one of the top 4 coins in my opinion, especially when it comes to like press releases and like when it starts to get accepted on things. Like you'll see on like AMC theaters, like they're usually the top 4, right? When a big company starts accepting crypto, it's going to be Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and Bitcoin Cash. And out of those 4, Bitcoin Cash has the lowest market cap, but I think technically it has a lot of potential, right? Partially for technical reasons and partially because of sentiment, things like that. And I've been following a lot of smaller Bitcoin Cash channels. Jeremy is one of them. I watched his podcast that he did with several community members of Bitcoin Cash, some of the more prominent sort of players. And I just thought it'd be cool to have him on, and we'll talk about the kind of Bitcoin Cash redemption arc and why we think that it's got such good risk reward right now in the crypto space. You want to introduce yourself, Jeremy?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. So, hey everyone, I'm Jeremy. To give myself a little bit of credibility, I got into Bitcoin at the end of 2013, which is pretty early as it goes. I mean,
I think that's around when I got in. Well, when
Really?
you bought Bitcoin, what was the price?
It was like in the $300 range, I think. It was
That's literally right around me because my first Bitcoin I bought for like $350.
Yeah, nice. That was a good time, and I think
Yeah.
definitely you see, across the history of crypto, people who come into crypto at different points, they have different sort of flavors and ideas of what crypto is about, and because
Right.
obviously the difference in how long they've been in it, but also what the sort of vibe was at the time that they joined. They say first impressions and everything. So I mean, yeah, I've been into crypto a very, very long time, but between 2013 and 2017, I was just obsessed with it, telling everyone about it, trying to be sort of involved. I mean, I had a lot of other stuff going on, to be honest. I didn't, start a business or anything around crypto, but I loved it and I was kind of following the scene very closely. And then after the fork with BTC, I just wasn't interested in that whole BTC stuff. I thought this is defeating the whole purpose of it. So I dropped out of the scene, completely lost interest. And then I was only just following it sort of a little bit for the next 3 years. And then at the end of 2020 in November, there was another fork. I don't know how familiar your listeners are with it, but basically Bitcoin Cash had 2 forks after leaving Bitcoin, one with Bitcoin SB and then another one with eCash. And when after that happened, and the eCash main developer, whose name was Amori, who was a big player in Bitcoin Cash, after he was out, I was like, wow, it's survived. The Bitcoin that I used to know and love in the early days, it's still there. The original problem was having the developers come in and sort of take control of it and be influenced from the outside. And so for the idea to sort of really have merit again, to me, it had to survive those developer capture, that you couldn't just buy up the devs and then destroy the whole project. And that process, that 3-year cycle, which I wasn't directly involved in, seemed that it could do that. So I became really excited about crypto again, and in January of 2021 I started the Bitcoin Cash podcast because I saw that there was a huge lack of information. Bitcoin Cash has a very, very strong community, probably the most dedicated, passionate community possible. It's the only one to have survived such a brutal run of circumstance. But there was, so I had all these narratives in my head about how things had been happening and what was going on there and everything. And but I thought, where is the person doing this podcast? Like, why is there no? I thought of like Poker, for instance, or There's different scenes that there's always like a, classic podcast that people who are into it can follow along with the stories. I thought Bitcoin Cash doesn't have that and it needs it. So I started it, and yeah, I've been doing it now for about 9 months. I've done about 30 episodes. The community seems to really enjoy it. I've had a lot of good feedback. Yeah, and I've been enjoying it a lot, actually. So that's kind of my story.
Yeah, and that's what Bitcoin Cash really needs, right? It needs its own narrative.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, people don't. I think people don't understand that either, because the way cryptocurrency went was, that's the whole BTC and BCH split, was that the story up until that point was, we're going to be, what I say on my show is, the global reserve currency, right? It was, Bitcoin is coming and it's going to be the money that everybody uses every day in every country to buy everything. And that was starting to get into people's heads because they'd never heard of cryptocurrency before. And that, what is this? And Bitcoin and crypto was one thing. People didn't even really know about cryptocurrency. They just knew about Bitcoin. But then with the split, the BTC side, who didn't want it to stay fast and easy and focus on retail adoption, they had to sort of come up with this new narrative, which is digital gold and all that. But that was a complete rationalization, like, after the fact. So they added in all of that. And then, because that wasn't really actually that interesting or exciting, you now have this whole casino of thousands of other coins that all come up out of nowhere. Because in my mind, the market is looking for, once again, that through line, that narrative of, what about just one money for the world? So hopefully that's what Bitcoin Cash is moving towards. But that's kind of the mentality and narrative in the Bitcoin Cash community, which is quite unique compared to any other parts of crypto, I think.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about my Bitcoin Cash journey. So, like you, I bought my first Bitcoin around 350, and as you know, for the viewers too, back when we were buying Bitcoin, it was much simpler times. Coinbase only had Bitcoin when I first started buying Bitcoin. So if someone wanted to buy crypto, I was just like, yeah, go to Coinbase and then you buy Bitcoin, because it was before they even had Litecoin and Ethereum on Coinbase, And it was much simpler times, because there were basically no altcoins, because there was really no need for altcoins. Bitcoin was just, everything was just Bitcoin, And then, we had the ICO mania of 2016, 2017. And then we had the hard fork. And I actually sold all my Bitcoin Cash when it happened.
Really? Wow. I'm the opposite. I sold all my BTC immediately.
Yeah, so I was lucky, because, as you know, it's gotten crushed versus Bitcoin.
Absolutely, yeah. Terrible financial decision.
Yeah, well, I made that decision not really out of an informed sense, but I actually bought that Bitcoin Cash was a scam, basically. You know what I mean? And I thought it was just free money, and I was stoked on it, because I still made I got thousands and thousands of free dollars, and when my mind was free money when I sold that Bitcoin Cash, because I sold it when it was pretty. I don't remember what it was at on Coinbase. It was before it had the pump to 4K, but it had that like initial pump where it was like $800 or $1,000. I think that's when I sold my Bitcoin Cash, and I was stoked on it, dude. I was like, damn, dude, I just made like 10K or whatever free money. Like, this is awesome. And then I just wrote it off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was into lots of other coins. I wrote Ethereum for a while. I thought Litecoin was the shit for a minute. Some of those coins I still like. Like, I still own Digibyte as one I like. Bitcoin Cash isn't even my top holding currently. But I started relearning about Bitcoin Cash when actually the Bitcoin SV fork happened. And that there was that whole, I was trying to understand what was going on with BSV, and was this guy actual Satoshi? I mean, I realized that he wasn't Satoshi pretty quickly for various reasons. And I have a lot of theories about who Craig is, or who's giving him money. But the BSV sort of hard fork, it crushed Bitcoin Cash even more, right? Because basically I don't know if half of the user base, but half of the market cap split off. For a while, one BSV was basically one Bitcoin Cash. And then, I don't know how it started, but I just started looking into Bitcoin Cash again. You know what? I think it was when Bitcoin started to have full blocks again during the next sort of bull cycle, and Ethereum was starting to get expensive too. And And just the Bitcoin Cash chart too. I mean, it's just so wrecked versus Bitcoin. I started getting back into it. And then about a year ago, I sold all my Litecoin for Bitcoin Cash because I was like, there's no way Litecoin to me is going to be able to compete with what Bitcoin is on a technical level anymore. And I saw a lot of, the market likes to go in the opposite of the herd. And a lot of even Bitcoin Cashers now, they're so salty because a lot of them were like you. Dude, a lot of them were like you. A lot of them sold all their Bitcoin for Bitcoin Cash, and literally their net worth compared to Bitcoin is down, like 25x. Like, so it's been brutal. And what I did, and have you watched the interview with Jihan Wu that he did?
With Pomp that he did recently?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I did watch that. Yeah, that was great.
Jihan is very underrated with his. I like his demeanor and his humility. And one thing that he pointed out, and I learned the same lesson with Bitcoin Cash. I think a lot of Bitcoin Cashers learn this lesson is that technicals are great, but network effects are so important in crypto. And Bitcoin it got the name and the ticker, and that was everything in the beginning. It was everything. Yeah. And Jihan, I think, who didn't realize this first. A lot of Bitcoin Cashers didn't realize how important the network effects are and just the control of the narrative. But Bitcoin Cash will, I think, now that everyone's turned against it and written it off, I think I'm starting to see the signs that it's going to, the adoption curve is going to accelerate. And that's kind of my thing with Bitcoin Cash. And my strategy this bull market has been every time I get a lot of altcoin profits, like when I rode for a while was Theta or all these altcoins, periodically I take profits into Bitcoin Cash. It's because it hasn't moved yet.
Yeah.
And that's been I think it's going to be a solid long-term strategy because Bitcoin Cash right now is probably my favorite long-term risk reward. If you look at, like we talked about, they don't talk about it in the headlines. It's kind of strange. So you don't know this, viewers, but some of you watching, but when they release the headlines, it's very interesting. They'll always say AMC, now it takes Litecoin, Ethereum, and Bitcoin. And they'll accept Bitcoin Cash too, but they won't mention it in the headline. And their narratives are everything, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason why the powers that be, whoever they are, okay, I don't like to conspiracy on you, but there's a reason why they always edit Bitcoin Cash out, okay? Because the whole narrative is that 1 megabyte blocks, you can do everything on Lightning Network, and the truth is you're never going to be able to compete with scaling on layer 1. There's just, and going back, I don't know if Bitcoin Cash actually will ever be cash for the world, but what it can do, I know, is that UTXO, people don't realize how optimized it is for certain simple smart contracts. And what we're going to see on Bitcoin Cash is we're going to see more and more smart contracts or DeFi use cases, because I know that works. Ethereum's proven it. Ethereum's proven it tenfold. That I don't know if people want pretty pure cash right now, but they want yield. I know that. They want to be able to get 10, 20% interest on their coins. They want to be able to speculate on NFTs. And so I think that's one other problem with the Bitcoin Cash community is they can be judgmental towards that. They can be judgmental towards the market, or the market's saying Bitcoin Cashers love to say the market's wrong. But I think a lot of the community I've seen, they're starting to realize that DeFi is important and that we're going to have to get Bitcoin Cash. If we want to get Bitcoin Cash jump started, we're going to have to ride that narrative. And we're seeing it. Smart Bitcoin Cash, in my opinion, is the most important thing that's ever happened at Bitcoin Cash. It seems to me like Jihan was at least partially behind it. And
he knows. I mean, there's loads of stuff in what you just said, but to take one thread of it, I definitely agree with you about Smart BCH. I think it ties together a lot of stuff that, again, if you haven't been in the game a long time, you might not sort of understand. But when BTC and BCH split, like I said, that changed the narrative from payments and kind of money. It then turned into this digital gold with BTC. But then almost everything else, if you take out maybe Litecoin and Dogecoin, almost everything else has gone in this direction of DeFi and whatever.
Right.
because with the Ethereum, they didn't cap their scaling, so more chain activity and whatever started up over there, right? And if that produced all this stuff that nobody was expecting, like DeFi and yield farming and whatever, and with that has then run into other problems like scalability and their own fee problems. But the main point about it is that it's kind of like, the crypto got the front door shut on it, so it started going around the back door, which is all this yield farming and tokens and whatever. That's all pointless if you can't actually like buy something with it at the end of the day. And at the moment, you can buy other cryptos, which you can then cash out, slowly back into fiat and then buy something. So there's still a lot of steps in the middle, right? But if you could combine those things and you could have something that just was directly spendable and you could do all of that new DeFi stuff, it would be such a killer combo, right? And that's what BCH, because the community does have to not live in the past, and I think they are, like you're saying, there's a bit of a regrowth, I think of it. Like there's just green shoots have started to come out. Yeah, there was a lot of salt. There's a lot of people who had a terrible time. A lot of people lost a lot of money. A lot of people just worn out from arguing amongst themselves, from not getting any, validation or hype or anything. But in my opinion, in 2021, you've seen a very noticeable the green shoots starting, and I think in 2022 you'll start to see some real special stuff happening. And Smart PCH is a classic example of that, because that means in theory that BCH could be the better Bitcoin and the better Ethereum. There's no other coin that's even close to that. And the way it was done as well, another thing I like about the BCH community is, even though, like you're saying, they can be a bit salty or whatever, but they do things their own way. Everything Smart BCH is like Ethereum, but it's done in a BCH mentality. They went and rewrote it to be hardware optimized, which is exactly the same as BCH thinking we're going to scale on layer one. So they did that. They still linked it into the proof of work instead of doing proof of stake. Like just a lot of these things, which there's no coin that's comparable. Ethereum, okay, there's other EVM chains, similar enough. Bitcoin, other coins, there's sort of similar enough, maybe. It's like Litecoin, similar enough, right? But there's only one BCH, that's for sure. And I'm really excited by the renewed enthusiasm, or just that combo of having the classic crypto values and lots of veterans combined with the willingness to try some new stuff and to adapt to what the market is coming out with. I think that's a great combo.
Yeah, I think the market doesn't understand just on a technical level how powerful Smart BCH is. For the viewers, you have to understand Smart BCH. If you want to look into it, you can start playing around with it today on MetaMask. It's just like, if some of you have used Uniswap, and you use all the Ethereum smart contracts, it's very similar. Basically, it's just a different network that you're using on MetaMask. But it's not just a fork of Ethereum where it can use the EVM code. It's from, like you said, from a technical level, they actually rewrote the whole machine code, so it could be more parallelized. And someone was doing, in one of the chats I was in, we were doing the math, and it seems like it's 10 times more scalable than even like Polygon.
Really? Okay. I mean, I know it's supposedly ADX Ethereum if you go just by the very simple the block, what's it called, the gas limit, but if it's going to wipe out those Ethereum layer 2s, that's even better.
No, even compared to the layer 2s, it's more powerful, because those layer 2s they didn't go back and optimize the code like the developers did. The Smart BCH developers are very underrated in my opinion, and they did everything right. Not only like what you said, they rewrote the code to be more hardware parallelized for modern machines, but also the fact that they didn't use a new token. A lot of the liquidity on Ethereum now is becoming fragmented, because like Polygon, for example, that has its own token. You're not using Ethereum as gas. Whereas with Smart BCH, what they did is that you use Bitcoin Cash that gets locked up as a UTXO set eventually as gas. And so there's no fragmentation of liquidity. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's genius. Yeah.
Yeah. Smart BCH is a big breakthrough. And to me, by far, it's the biggest thing that BCH has ever enabled. And we're starting to see, I think that it'll start to get network effects, and a lot of adoption is going to move to Smart BCH, especially once we get Shawgate and we get, they're going to have coin staking for miners and stuff. And it introduces a lot of interesting game theory that I've been thinking about, because half of the fees in Smart BCH actually go to miners that are voting for validators. And so what if Smart BCH becomes so big that it becomes significantly more profitable to mine BCH for BCH miners? Are they going to leave Bitcoin for BCH because it's so much more profitable due to Smart BCH because they're earning all those transaction fees? And what happens if miners start to leave Bitcoin for Bitcoin Cash? How is the market going to react to that narrative? It's going to be very interesting, I think.
Yeah, I mean that would be amazing if we started to see that, and it's interesting because to me, BCH has it's like a marathon runner, right? If you're like BTC
Right.
is it's like the hare and the tortoise, right? And so BTC, they shot out in front, they had the brand, they had the network effect, they had the momentum, right? They didn't have to go back from scratch. So of course, in the short run, they did way better. And like you're saying, a lot of Bitcoin Cash completely underestimated how little everyone understood the core concept and was just going with the brand, right? But if you come to where we are now, because of the way BCH has such a lower price, and they've changed the difficulty algorithm and everything like that, so it's actually choosing to have a kind of be wrecked by default, basically, where BTC has most of the hash rate, and so by default it keeps most of the hash rate, which keeps the price high, and those two things feed into each other, right? So to break that cycle, there needs to be either a huge plummet in the price of BTC or a huge jump in the price of BCH. And if one of those things starts to happen, then you do start to see a little bit of a feedback loop happening where it could just get momentum and just surge up. I don't think it will be like BCH will just be like 0.1 and then 0.15, then 0.2, and just slowly work its way up. If it starts to defeat the network and brand advantage, if the narrative has moved enough that BTC is going to, that BCH is better, if that idea becomes common, then it will just be very fast, as everybody kind of jumps on the hype train. And so all that is the community is sort of looking for, we're definitely not there yet, but maybe in a year or 2 years, is something to sort of jumpstart that process. And you're exactly right. Maybe something like Smart BCH could do that and just slowly start sucking hash power out of BTC. And it would be crazy if that happened, because there's I don't know what comeback the BTC community would have, because they've built themselves into this corner of being so slow to innovate, and so stability is the most important thing, and we don't care if we've got our cap scaling or all this stuff, and that narrative is fine. But if the more innovative BCH gets the jump on them, then there's no way out, because either they defect, like individuals in their community can either defect over to BCH, which they will start doing if they sense the wind is changing, or they just kind of fragment into chaos themselves, because half of them will say, no, we should stick to what's working, and half of them will say, look, we're losing, we're falling behind, we need to catch up. And then that creates more division and strife in their bubble, which BCH has already been through with the BSV, with the eCash. Like, the community has already worked through those problems. So in the short term did terribly, and BTC had the opposite. They were golden in the sun because everybody was on the same page. But if that dynamic flips, then presumably or hopefully the financial markets will flip too.
Yeah, and I think slowly and surely we're seeing the narrative start to shift. Part of it is because Bitcoin Cash's technical prowess has reached such a level it's like undeniable versus Bitcoin. Bitcoin Cash has had 3 or 4 years of upgrades now.
Yeah.
Let's say what you want about Omri, but he got a lot of upgrades in. He got a lot of new opcodes in. He did a lot of important things to Bitcoin Cash. We'll forever be in debt to Omri, and because he was the maintainer that decided to fork Bitcoin Cash and maintain it in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his. Yeah.
Yeah, Omri. Some of the OGs, Omri gets a lot of hate sometimes from Bitcoin Cashers, but you should actually, you're in Bitcoin Cashers, you're in debt to Omri forever. Because even though you might be mad about him for forking to his own coin or whatever your political stance is on that, he's the one that forked it. He's the one that he did significant upgrades for 3 years. Some of those upgrades he did are no joke. They're minor, but they're powerful. Just getting rid of replace by fee and just doing the old opcodes. They're simple, but they're powerful. And
And he
Bitcoin
agreed
Cash,
to step away without creating a huge drama as well either. Like, I mean, I was not following it in minute detail, but essentially at some point he said, look, I want to rebrand to eCash. So guess what? I'll leave you guys Bitcoin Cash. We don't need to have another who is the real Bitcoin, fight or whatever. You can do that. I want to do my own separate thing. So I'm just going to do that and like look after it, guys. Like it's all yours. Like that's an amazingly powerful thing to
yeah.
do, which I think people, undervalue as well.
And I think if he ever figures out something really awesome, I think we're pretty open to adding it to Bitcoin Cash. Like if he can solve pre-consensus, if he can actually get Avalanche done, which I'm not entirely confident that he can get pre-consensus done on Avalanche. I haven't seen really evidence that, but I don't know. He seems to be able to think he can. And if he does, that would make Bitcoin Cash another multiple powerful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Because there's no reason why we can't just take their code.
Yeah, exactly. That's the genius
Right.
of so many BDC forks, right? Is they can all sort of learn from each other, and that's why it's critical to have that community mentality of being open-minded, because the BDC side, well, they're going to end up in a situation. Their problem is not technical; it's more in their community. I mean,
Right.
they have technical problems as a result, but even if they tomorrow realize, shit, we got to catch up here, then
Right.
they would need to, they would first need to get their community the idea of, wait, why don't we absorb some code or copy this or copy that? They're not going to be thinking like that. They're going to be thinking,
Right.
blinkers on, shutting out the rest of the world. Everybody who's not us is an idiot. And
Yeah.
that's not a healthy thing to think in any area of life, really.
Right. There are coins that going back to how important network effects are. This is why I've been telling you guys to buy Bitcoin Cash and why me and Jeremy think we're early. It's because we're just starting to see the network effects build, okay? And a lot of coins are in the position Bitcoin Cash is. Bitcoin Cash is on all the major exchanges, okay? It has a lot of Bitcoin OGs with money behind it, okay? The biggest miner in the world is behind it, Jihan Wu. The biggest miner in the whole world is Bitcoin miners in the whole world is behind it, okay? It's got ETFs. It's liquid. Okay. It has a strong, bigger community than people realize. A lot of the community is in Asia. People don't realize this. It's probably bigger in Asia than it is in the Western world. This is why a lot of Western Bitcoiners like to poop on Bitcoin Cash. They don't realize how big the Asian community is in other countries. And so it's got a lot of network effects that other coins that might be more technical than Bitcoin Cash. I mean, if there are coins that are better than Bitcoin or more technical than Bitcoin Cash. But what Bitcoin Cash has these it has a lot of the simple but powerful things, and it has the network effect starting to build. It's already on all the exchanges. There's already electronic ETFs you can buy Bitcoin Cash. It's already the most accepted as for merchants. You know what I mean?
It's been
It
around
already
a long
has.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think we're going to see these network effects really start to build for Bitcoin Cash.
That's definitely something I really like about it. And one of the reasons I am so strong on it is that when you look at every coin has its problems, right? You can look at the top 100 coins and every single one will have a variety of its own issues related to its history and its community and all that sort of stuff, right? But in my mind, BCH has, if you could pick any of the problems to have, it has the best problems to have, which are the branding is kind of annoying and people sort of like kind of hate the branding or have, think it's a bit of a scam knockoff or whatever. And it has a bit of a salty community, right? So if the saltiness part can literally be fixed in probably 2 months, if it started moving up and started growing up, suddenly everyone would be back to optimism. Yeah, it's all good, we're killing it. That can all be forgiven very, very quickly. And the branding part of it is literally just a matter of sort of user education. That's why I do my podcast, and I'm making some sort of tutorials, and the rest of the community as well is starting to get that thing. Like, it needs to just coalesce around its own narrative, instead of being, oh, we are the crappier, smaller brother of Bitcoin. It just needs to become, we are Bitcoin Cash, and I think it's starting to do that.
Yeah.
And then,
and I actually like the branding. I like the
yeah,
branding of Bitcoin Cash. So a lot of people like to hate on the branding, and I think it's good to have the word Bitcoin in it, honestly. It's good to have the word cash in it, and I like the green because green reminds people of money.
Yeah, and going up on exchanges, it's got the green, when the little ticket goes green and red as it's going up. And I think the green, it was a bit of a genius move.
Yeah.
I wasn't involved. I don't know how the community came to that idea, but it contrasts really nicely against the orange, and that they tilted the B the other way as well too. So it's more optimistic. It's looking up. It seems environmental. Okay, crypto is not necessarily super environmental, but it sounds like that. It's great, and not many other coins are green as well. If you go and look at coinmarketcap.com, you see orange, black, yellow, blue, and red are almost all of them. And the only ones that are green really are Tether, Bitcoin Cash, and Ethereum Classic, which is way down the list. And also it's kind of a bit of a sibling to BCH in that way as well too. So it helps it stand out. Yeah, I agree with you. I think the branding's actually great, and people who don't like it because they have some historical bias or whatever, they're not thinking of the people who are coming are more important than the people who are already there, basically.
Right. And you want to be, as an aside, you want to be ahead of the curve. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm always amazed by a lot of people that like follow me and like even friends and stuff. I told them to buy Bitcoin when it's $300. I was like, you guys, you got to get Bitcoin. This is the shit, you guys. And they didn't believe me. Okay. Then I'd tell them to buy Ethereum when it was like $8. Like, guys, Ethereum is the okay. They don't believe me, right? Tell them to buy Theta at 10 cents. Guys, Theta, it's gonna be big. Okay, I love it. Okay, and the people still don't believe me about Bitcoin Cash. And the masses, you guys, you have to realize are usually wrong. Okay, and you want to be ahead of the narrative. You want to be in a coin before the hype hits. Okay, and so yeah, Bitcoin Cash doesn't have a whole lot of hype yet. But if you pay attention, you're going to see the pieces starting to come together, okay? I'm not saying you should go all in. I'm not saying selling your house for Bitcoin Cash. But in my opinion, you want to have a position in Bitcoin Cash. You want to be acquiring it. And for most people, most average people, I tell people to buy Bitcoin Cash. That's my favorite coin for most people because you can buy it on Coinbase. And they have people have unit bias. So going back to the saltiness of the Bitcoin Cash community as an aside, I've been trying to tell Bitcoin Cash people, because they get into technical arguments on the Bitcoin Cash charts, like all these Bitcoin Cash OGers, right? They'll start debating like Tether or whatever. It'll be like the whole chat. I'm like, you guys, 99% of retail. Okay. Do you know what Bitcoin Cash is and 99% of retail? It's the green coin on Coinbase with Bitcoin in the name, and it's cheaper Bitcoin. Okay. That's all it is to like 99% of people. Trust me. Okay. Because I have normie friends that I have buy crypto. That's all it is. Just the green coin on Coinbase with Bitcoin in the name. That's all it is. It's not bigger blocks. They don't understand any of that. Hash power or whatever. They don't understand how any of this works. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, but I have people buy it because it has the network effects. They get on Coinbase and it's easy, and they most of these exchanges I think nowadays are fairly safe. I do encourage people to store their own keys. But for a lot of people, they can't be bothered. Like my grandma, she can't store her own keys. She doesn't want to be bothered with it. You know what I mean? And it's probably safer for her on Coinbase.
Yeah.
And so that's my favorite risk reward for normies is Bitcoin Cash. That's why I tell people to accumulate. Or, a lot of them, they dabble in the fun coins too. Like my friend made quite a bit of money on Shiba. I was like, I was like, dude, all right, sell some profit for Bitcoin Cash. He did it. So. It's a good coin to take profit into right now. If you're up a lot on a lot of altcoins, it's a great coin to take profit into and just hold it for 3-4 years.
That's what I think. Yeah, long run. That's what people need to. To me, it's more that's the point. Is when BCH comes good, it's because it's the coin that most heavily rewards user education. That the more somebody understands crypto, the more they will like BCH, and maybe the less they'll like some other crap. Whereas the less they understand crypto, maybe the less they like BCH, and the more they like other things that are shinier or hype, or whatever. And yeah, like you're saying, I mean, it's the same story for me, man. It doesn't matter how early you are, how many times you tell people, they don't believe you. Then after it happens, They kind of come back, and then they're surprised that you've moved on to something else. That's the funniest part as well, too. They're like, "Oh, now I'm into this, but you're not into it anymore. What's going on?" And you're like, "How are you not getting it?" That's because I'm already where I'm on the next thing, just like I was back then. But that's not the next thing. Now you're onto it, So yeah, it's definitely funny.
Yeah, and I was a little bit early. I started selling my Bitcoin into Bitcoin Cash at about 0.03 on the ratio. And now it's like 0.01. So I was still early, but I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Just early. Okay. And so the answer to this, if your hypothesis hasn't changed, is that you keep accumulating because nothing's changed. You know what I mean? And what you want to buy when the coin gets hate, man, that's when you want to buy. And it's one of my favorites for and another, it's like a universal principle. The truth always wins.
Yeah, exactly.
Eventually, the market is going to come around to Bitcoin Cash. It's only a matter of time.
I mean, I do tend to see it sort of, again, I'm not really as big on all the different coins and whatever. I can't advise any of your viewers on that. I don't know so much about finances. Whenever I've tried to trade different coins, I just get wrecked. I'm the complete worst person in the world to talk to about that. But the way I look at it is seeing it as it's kind of like between BTC and BCH specifically. It's like this big, parabola, right? Where it drops down. And exactly, we're coming out the bottom of that, and that's literally what the price chart looks like if you look at it, the USD price of BCH. So that's one part of it, but it's even to me, it's just more a momentum thing. Is because BCH started out with, they were completely disorganized. They had a lot of passion, but they didn't have the network effect. They had to redo everything from scratch. Had to sort out the rebranding. Had to sort out the difficulty adjustment. Had to fork off a few people who didn't get it. Had to go through all this pain. Of course, it's just plummeting the whole time. But the point is, it kept working away at it, and now it's starting to, show results. And now things have started to turn around with Smart BCH coming out. The community is more united. More and more little YouTube channels are popping. Not even mine. I'm seeing more and more of just these small channels. A couple hundred people that are like, "Oh, Bitcoin Cash," like get involved in this, and just those little green shoots. And then by the time the momentum is turned around and it starts moving back up, by then it's too late for BTC to sort of reorganize and fight back, because they've already lost control of the narrative as well. Not with BCH specifically, but Bitcoin used to be crypto, and now it's completely different. Now there's crypto. Oh, Bitcoin, that's the biggest crypto, right? And that's a loss that I don't think many people into Bitcoin. They have this assumption that Bitcoin was all of crypto, and they still think that, even as more and more and more and more of the mind share, the human capital, the talent, the discussion all moves away from them, and they don't see that as a problem. They just think, oh, that's just a lot of idiots. But they're the idiots because they don't see that trend happening, and they're not doing anything to stop it. So of course it's continuing.
Yeah, right. You know what? You should fucking rejoice that you get to buy Bitcoin Cash for this cheap. Dude, you could sell your Bitcoin for 100 fucking Bitcoin Cash right now. Do you know how lucky you are? Every time I buy Bitcoin Cash for this price, I just fucking smile. Every time, dude.
Definitely great. Future me will be happy, I think. Yeah.
You should be so happy.
Future me will be happy. Yeah.
Yeah, you should be so happy that you have an opportunity to basically buy Bitcoin, go back. You're basically going back in time.
That is another interesting aspect to it. Yeah, is that it is, when I got re-involved in the community, it's like it does feel that's what we sort of need to create, is that same sense, because in 2013 Bitcoin had Mt. Gox. It blew up. It was a big disaster. Then in 2014 it was sort of starting to rebuild, and then in 2015 it was really hitting its stride, and then in 2016 all the problems with scaling and all that started, right? But the BCH community now, I feel like it's had that fork with eCash. That was kind of like the Mt. Gox. And then in 2021 has been kind of analogous to 2014, where people were starting to sort of put the pieces back together. And then I think 2022 is going to be like 2015, where people are really getting rolling, and that this time around, hopefully there will not be that scaling problem. That problem's cut out. Nobody is in BCH who is going to cause that drama again, because we've already otherwise you still wouldn't be here at all. So once that gets rolling as that if that sense comes into the community of like, wow, it's happening. This is actually it. This is what Bitcoin was going to be the whole time, because there are so many veterans. That'll get them really excited. And on top of that, it will maybe attract back people who were like me, or even like you. You know, you said first you didn't get it, you didn't, you weren't au fait with it or whatever, but just, it started to click. And if that starts clicking in more and more people, that snowballs fast.
Yeah, and don't underestimate how fast narratives can shift. Bitcoin Cash is one big pump away from the whole narrative shifting.
Yeah. I mean, we sort of had one in, when was it, about May or something like that. And it went from, because at the bottom, it was 118 to 1 against BTC. And it went up, and it, just in 2 or 3 weeks, it's kind of unusual because BTC has to be sort of flat, but BCH moving up, which is rare. But it started happening, and it went up to 35 to 1, right? And that still wasn't, people don't think of, proportionally, they don't think of it. It's not a linear thing, right? The difference between 3 to 1 and 2 to 1 sounds like not very much, but it is actually sort of a big jump. So that 118 to 1 to 35 to 1 was probably like BCH just tripled in price. But as the ratio, that was just shrinking massively. Like it was very quickly sort of coming back in the game. And if it had done another 2x or another 4x, it would have been, back up to like 10 to 1 or something. And people would have been thinking, wait, where did this come from? 100 to 1 to 10 to 1. That's a pretty legit kind of we're back in contention sort of thing, I think.
Yeah, if you look on the Bitcoin Cash Bitcoin chart, you'll see that the 0.028 region to like 0.03, that's the most important band of resistance. I don't think that we'll probably make higher highs above that until sometime next year. But when that happens, you can expect Bitcoin maxis will start to panic.
You think?
That's when the panic sets in.
Well, that's a real question. Then I'd love to hear your take as to at what point does the BTC maxi crowd, especially because there's people who hold both, right? There's people who don't care. There's people who are in different coins. Not everybody is in the closed off echo chamber, right? But there's certainly a contingent of BTC and only BTC and nothing else, or especially BTC and especially not BCH, right? At what point do you think the alarm bells will start to ring for them? Because I don't see them. They're definitely not seeing it now, and that's understandable. It has, the green shoots are coming, but if you're not looking, you're not going to see that, right? But if it starts coming up, they're going to think, oh yeah, this is just a pump, or it's just whatever. At what point does it start breaking in? Will BCH go past BTC? Surely not, right? Surely the panic will set in before then. But
well, first of all, there's not as many maxis. Like the maxis aren't as important as they used to be. Partially because of Ethereum. Ethereum kind of killed that narrative.
True.
And there's a strong possibility that Ethereum will flip Bitcoin in market cap. And so that narrative might be already starting to die, not because of Bitcoin Cash, but because of Ethereum. And there's so many coins now, and there's so many different communities, and there's so much growth in other coins that the maxis, they don't matter nearly as much as they used to, right? So we can see that kind of die on its own. But as far as them getting, I mean, they're gonna get very salty about the Bitcoin Cash ascent. And there's several things that could set it off. It could be price movement. I think once it gets back above 0.03 and we start to see higher highs off of that level, you can start to see panic on their side. If hash power starts to leave, that'll induce panic. Also, if Bitcoin Cash starts to do a significant amount of transactions, like if we see a 10x in Bitcoin Cash transactions and all of a sudden Bitcoin Cash is producing like 10 megabyte blocks every day, that'll sit in panic because the market will start to realize, wait, what? We can do 10 megabyte blocks? Like, I thought we couldn't do 10 megabyte. Why can Bitcoin Cash do so many transactions? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That'll be a big one, I think, if we start to see the transaction count consistently flip Bitcoin. I think that might be the biggest one, is if we start to see lots of transactions happen on Bitcoin Cash and it flips. It's significant, like, Bitcoin Cash is doing even like double of Bitcoin consistently. I think you'll start to see a lot of salt start to flow.
Well, the time has run out sort of for Lightning Network. That was another sort of long running story that maybe people coming into it's harder to appreciate. But when there was the original debates, about, okay, we're going to raise the block size limit, we're going to do whatever. And there kind of came in all this block stream, we're going to do this Lightning Network. And the joke was it's 18 months away, haha. And then, because it was never going to be delivered, it was constantly promised and delivered. And now it is sort of like delivered, but it's taken 6 years. And as far as I know, it's still pretty terrible as far as I'm aware, and there's still a lot of problems. Like fundamentally, the idea is actually flawed. So it's never going to work, I don't think. But like they had 6 years to try and prove that was going to go somewhere. And it hasn't taken off. Like how many... Even all the people that like Bitcoin BTC, not all of them, some of them like Lightning Network, but are they really using it? Come on, are they really going out and buying a coffee maybe once for a Twitter video to show, wow, look at how, but like, let's be real. Are they paying for stuff regularly? Are they paying each other with it? No, they probably just use the regular Bitcoin network and pay a 50-cent fee because they only transfer it around every so often and they don't, whatever. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not sure people really want to use Bitcoin for payments, at least not right now. They want DeFi, man. That's what they want. That's what give the users what they want. That's why Smart BCH is going to be so powerful, I think, because that's what people want. They want to buy cat memes, man. They want to buy NFTs. They want yield. They want to gamble. You know what I mean? And then and it's a way to try to accumulate for people to try to accumulate more Bitcoin Cash by writing these smaller coins, and they want to be able to do all that. That's the big narrative, I think. I think maybe in the future we'll see more of a shift back to peer-to-peer cash. But I'm not sure if Bitcoin Cash or any crypto will ever be truly peer-to-peer cash for the world. It might end up being just a gold token that runs on top of Bitcoin Cash. You know what I mean?
Maybe. I mean, I sort of see it as, and you do see this kind of comes to that like salty, defeatist mentality we've kind of touched on a little bit, which some of the people who've been through the wars sort of have, but they sort of say, oh, the world's forgotten about peer-to-peer cash and that was what it was all about. I don't really put a lot of faith in that kind of negativity or a lot of weight in it, because what I think people are missing is that it's like a one-way timeline. You start with you don't know about crypto, and then you hear about it, and some people go on this little side tangent of I hate crypto and whatever, and then but at some point they get over that, or some people just skip it because they're open-minded, and then it gets to, oh, okay, there's something going on here, and then okay, I'm going to get into it, and and like you build up. You can't go backwards in that journey. You can't unhear about crypto. You can't unrealize that it's valuable. You can't realize that it can be used for payments. And so the whole point of DeFi and all this excitement and whatever is it's at least giving the people the idea that crypto is a real thing, it's not going to die, and that it's got value. And then once you have all those ideas in place, the last one of being like, oh, I should just, take it for payments, but you can get there in a series of small hops. You don't have to go from I've never heard of crypto to I should use it for payments. I mean, if the story hadn't been messed up with all this forks and everything, then maybe we could have done it like that. But instead, if we have to do it the slow way, getting people there step by step, well, it's still happening. And DeFi is teaching people in droves that there's money to be made in crypto, that it's valuable, and you should want it, even if they just wanted to speculate on it to sell it later. That's a big improvement over they didn't want it.
Yeah, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but in the white paper, in the headline, does it even call it cash? It says, I think it's a peer-to-peer transfer of value transfer system.
Electronic cash system. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people get caught up in the cash a little bit, but it's also value transfer. And value can take lots of ways. You can wrap government bonds on this thing. You can track elections. It's so much more, I think, than peer-to-peer cash. It's like, and it's such a powerful invention. I think we're continuously discovering what it actually is and what it's capable of. One of the guys I follow, Reggie Middleton, he actually thinks that cryptocurrency and the blockchain tech itself is more powerful than the internet. And it's the most powerful invention since electricity.
I would probably agree with that. I mean, I think this is very, very big picture, but I think people have just not even got the slightest understanding of how like civilization changing cryptocurrency is going to be on the scale of 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, right? When we like look back at human history, there will be a, you know, one dot on that timeline. It'll be like invents fire, invents the wheel, invents, you know, the electricity, invents cryptocurrency, right? It's going to be in that category because
I agree.
we haven't even seen scratch the surface, and the surface level is everybody in the world gets onto one frictionless form of money. Bam, like economy, innovation, everything through the roof. And that's just the start of it, which is people now have the idea to cooperate without a central authority, right? So the entirety of human history, we've been organized in tribes. There's somebody at the top, somebody ultimately makes the decision. That's how a company is organized, right? You have a CEO. That's how a government is organized. You have a prime minister or whatever, even in a democratic country, or you have a dictator, right? That's everybody is used to thinking in these pyramid shapes instead of in a sort of, you know, flat circle kind of thing, which crypto was doing, because before you couldn't create trust any other way. But now we have this new, and we're seeing it, the very like stuff we have now with DAOs and whatever. That is so primitive. That is going to be seen as an absolute joke in the future as to what, you know, new ways of organizing society, you know, people come up with built on this stuff. Definitely.
Right. Yeah, I think going back to what do I think Bitcoin Cash specifically needs? It just, first of all, more users, the onboarding, and just a community that's willing to die on its shield too.
Yeah. Well, we've got that. That's what I like as well. I do love that. That's to me, that's it's that same philosophy of you can only move in one direction. People end up in BCH, and generally once they're in there, that's it. Once you've figured it out, you know, like you say, you switch from BTC to BCH. People don't switch back. Who switches from BCH to BTC? Freaking no one, really. So because even if it's slow and even if it's small, if you just have two buckets of water and one of them's full of water, but it's just dripping a little bit into the other one and the flow is only going one way, it's just a matter of time, right? So that's kind of how I see it. The community being so unbreakable and so committed against everything. And another thing I think people underrate is how much more the market can value a coin like that in hindsight, right? Is you can say, okay, let's say BTC right now is worth $50,000. Well, imagine if there was a network as good as BTC, except it had proven itself like 10 times more committed to the idea. That's not a one-to-one valuation. That's way higher if you've got that level of commitment. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and Bitcoin Cash is, you know, it's probably 100 times more powerful than Bitcoin. If you combine the blocks that it can handle, the opcodes, smart BCH, literally from a technical standpoint, it's probably 100 times more powerful than Bitcoin. It's immense. It's world. Bitcoin Cash is world changing. Bitcoin Cash will probably reshape the world.
Yep, I definitely believe it. That's why I've started my whole podcast around it.
Can you imagine if Bitcoin had taken Bitcoin Cash's roadmap, where we would be at right now?
That's what people don't understand as well either, you know, is they like people who join up to BTC now or whatever, and they think, oh, we're killing it. We're at $50,000. It's the curve over the last, you know, since the split or even before when the community trouble was all going on in 2015, 2016. People don't know what the momentum was like then. The growth rates, the transactions were just going exponential. It was just spreading out to everyone. The hype was going insane. That was crazy, the loss that has been had over these 6 or 7 years. Of course, crypto has progressed forward, but it was probably, you know, 5% maybe of what it could have exploded up to in that time if there hadn't been the community disagreement and spreading out to all the coins and all the back and forth and, you know, everything like that, right? Especially because at that time, regulators were not on to, you know, now there's so many more people trying to get in the way and cause issues. At that point, we're just taking them all completely by surprise, and crypto would have just spread everywhere before anybody had a chance to do anything about it. So now it's doing it the hard way, and maybe in the long run it will prove to be a benefit because now the decentralization has fragmented out into all these coins and they have to prove themselves in an open market. So that was the silver lining. But if BCH can really get rolling, I don't think people undervalue how fast and how, like, in a, you know, on a scale of 2 or 3 years, how dramatically different the world and the scene will be as a result of that.
Yeah, Bitcoin Cash is a technical tour de force. You know what I mean? If Bitcoin was what Bitcoin Cash currently is on a technical level, Bitcoin would still be 90% of the market.
Exactly. I definitely think that, and I think people don't think about it that way. I've seen people say stuff like, oh, well, it's just natural that the longer a market goes on, of course, the smaller players will start to grab, a few more, a bit more share, or they'll come up with something new or different or whatever. It doesn't really devalue Bitcoin. Bitcoin's still just doing Bitcoin. But to me, it's the complete opposite, which is if they lost that 95%, and even if you have the biggest network and you're not continuing to just crush the competition, more and more out of the picture, you're failing, because it's like being given a huge handicap, a huge advantage. And if you're just maintaining parity with that huge advantage, that's clearly a problem with the side with the advantage, right? Because if they have that advantage and they can't increase their lead from there, then they're already lost. It's that parabola again. They're already sliding down the side of the parabola.
Right. Yeah, so I think what Bitcoin Cash needs, it needs podcasts like this, just smaller channels that we're starting to see pop up. It needs more memes. It needs a meme army. It's kind of starting to come. The memes are starting to come there. I enjoy the Chungus memes. I'm going to have a meme competition soon. It's going to be $100 first place, $50 second place, $25 third place, and just you gotta send me your best Bitcoin Cash Chungus memes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's something that definitely the community is like, and you can look at some of these other dodgy little tokens and whatever. They've got nothing else, literally nothing else, except for a Telegram full of thousands of people spamming all these funny little emotes and whatever. Yeah, I don't know who draws up all these or whatever, but we need to get a few of those people excited about BCH, because
I think sometimes Bitcoin Cash, the community can take itself a little too seriously.
Exactly. And just inject a bit of fun into it, I mean, of course it kind of comes with that user education thing. I think is that because you need to get the picture at so many different levels. People don't think, but let's just get people in the door with some, it's like a big candy or something to get them excited about, oh, what is this? And then they can learn about all the other stuff. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I did think of starting. I haven't had time to really start it and curate it, but we could have some sort of BCH meme hub, like Telegram or whatever. Make a few of those.
Are you on Telegram?
Stickers. Yeah. I'm on Telegram. Well, I have a channel for my podcast, but that's only one direction. But
I'll show you some.
Make one.
There's a meme chat that I'm a part of, and I'm hiring a guy who's been making Bitcoin Cash memes for me.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what I'm trying to do is, first of all, I've already made it in crypto. Like, I'm good. Bitcoin Cash should go to 0, and I've already made it. What I'm doing is I'm trying to help Bitcoin Cash because I believe in it so much. And so I think another really cool thing that people can do is, tip Bitcoin Cash to people on Twitter. There's a tip bot that I discovered. And one thing I discovered is if it's a normal person asking about crypto, don't tip them like $1, because they're a normie. They don't know. They see like $1. It's not enough for them, at least for the average Western person. If it's someone from Africa, obviously, like a couple bucks might be a much bigger deal. But what I'm seeing with the typical middle class American, $1, $2, it's not enough for them to actually learn how to get the money from the Twitter tip bot. But
Maybe 20.
Give them $20 and do it targeted. If you see a tweet starting to get a lot of traction, they're asking about crypto, tip them $25, $30 with a Bitcoin Cash. That's how I discovered the sweet spot is $15 and higher. Because if it's $10 and lower, at least for Americans, they're not gonna want to. They're you know what I mean?
Yeah, it seems more effort than it's worth. Yeah. When you bend over to pick up a 20-cent coin on the ground, you might even just not bother, right? It's that same idea.
But yeah, encourage tipping. I think with Twitter and Telegram, they have Bitcoin Cash tipping bots to get people. I think that's a great way to get money velocity up. And also just memes and just having a positive attitude and sharing just all that sort of good stuff. And my prophecy still stands. I still believe Bitcoin Cash will pass. I believe Bitcoin Cash will pass Bitcoin in market cap one day. I would say within 3 to 4 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep, I agree with you. I think maybe in the next, I want to say conservatively 10 years. I don't really believe that. I kind of want to, I'm just giving myself some leeway there, right? I think Like you see on Reddit, people are doubting or hating BCH is never going anywhere, and the best is you just put it the remind me bot, set it to 5 years. I'll see you in 5 years, bro. I love that. I love that because I've done that so many times before. All the stuff that I did 5 years ago, you look at it now, you just laugh. You're like, you were so wrong, crypto is a scam. It's never going anywhere. 5 years is a long time. In crypto, 5 years is about 500 years as well.
Yeah,
So
5
that's
years is
very
a long time.
long time.
A little
Yeah.
quicker. I think Bitcoin Cash will flip Bitcoin within 3 to 4. I'll give myself a little leeway. I'll say within 4 years, Bitcoin Cash I think will pass Bitcoin. Honestly.
The next halving is in 4 years. Let me ask you: do you think like there's been a lot of hype around this bull cycle, right? Because people see these patterns. They say, okay, 2013 it was like this, 2017 it was like this, and 2020, 2021 it's been like this again. And I personally have felt that the 2021 cycle, people are way overhyping that. They're predicting these massive valuations of whatever. And the reason I'm unconvinced is because when you look at, to me, the previous cycles are driven by psychology, but there was a element of adoption. As it got more adopted, people could see, wow, this is actually happening, and then they got excited, right? Whereas this time around, I mean, a few banks bought it or whatever, but you don't see people on the street, yo, trade me some Bitcoin. None of that's really happening. So it had this kind of $60,000, and then I was like, well, maybe that's kind of it. And then now it's had another one up to 67 or 68, but it previously would just to the moon, it would just blast off. Hasn't done that this time, and I feel like maybe it won't. It'll just tail off a bit because it's not inspiring anyone really.
Yeah. Also, I think the cycles are getting longer. I don't think we're going to have the crazy peak that everyone thinks we're going to do and then have a big crash. I think this cycle is going to go out into the spring, maybe even all the way through the summer. Right. I think everyone's expecting the 4-year cycle, and it's become so much of a meme at this point that it won't happen like people think it will. Bitcoin's a lot bigger now. Crypto's a lot bigger. It's more like a macro asset. So it's very correlated with the stock market.
Yeah.
And so crypto is going to basically, I think, do what the broader markets do. Like if we see continued inflation like we're seeing, Bitcoin's not going to stop. 4-year cycle doesn't fucking matter, dude. If the Fed is going to keep printing this much money, the halving, none of that matters. The biggest thing is the money printer going burr. That's Absolutely. The biggest, because Bitcoin's a big enough market now where that's what's the most important thing. Bitcoin's like half the market cap of silver now. This isn't some little thing that's and the halvings, we've already had 3. And so with each halving too, the halvings take less effect. Yeah. So I don't think we're going to see the same 4-year cycle again. I really don't.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be longer than people think, and it's going to be, especially for Bitcoin, it'll probably be less volatile.
Absolutely.
We're going to see a lot of Wyckoff grind up, I think, with Bitcoin, and we're going to see altcoins start to decouple. They already have coins like Avalanche, Thorchain, Luna. I can name so many now. Avalanche. A lot of these coins are basically decoupled.
Just comes back to the narrative. It's all like a big soup. It's the macro story with people decoupling in their mind, with more and more infrastructure getting built out for crypto as well. Because BTC failed to be the one and only coin, I think another aspect of it was that all this stuff like Coinbase or like all these different exchanges or all these different whatever, they built everything to handle all these different coins because they couldn't confidently bet it's going to be Bitcoin and just Bitcoin. And so as a result, all this stuff has been built out so that now it's so much easier to switch between coins, or any new coin could come out and just out of the woodwork suddenly be kicking off. Because if you launch a new coin, I mean, you do start with some pretty serious disadvantages in terms of consumer trust and whatever, but you get a lot of infrastructure for free just because it's built for any coin rather than, specifically this coin or that coin. So that also makes it so the market is less locked into, Bitcoin, or even to Ethereum is already, bleeding market share to its own competitors. Same thing, because people can and will switch.
Yeah, there's so much software that's been built now. It's like Lego pieces, right? We're talking about smart BCH. You can take all the software that's already been built on Ethereum, and you basically just cut and paste it.
Exactly.
And then you just wait for the network effects and the users and everything. But yeah, I think that the cycles are going to be longer for sure. But Also, in an intuitive sense, I consider myself an intuitive person.
Mhm.
I started buying Bitcoin intuitively before I even understood it. I was just like,
Yeah.
okay, this is it. Bitcoin's it. And so Bitcoin Cash, part of it is arrogance. The universe always tends to correct itself and humble people. And when I started to see the arrogance of the Bitcoin core devs and the community, I was like, the universe is going to teach them humility. And I think
Yeah.
no, I'm serious though. I'm serious.
Oh,
So
I agree. Yeah,
you know,
absolutely, man. I'm on board. Yeah.
yeah, and I think Bitcoin Cash partially represents that. And I have a
Well,
very
it would be such a story, you know, and I think it will be it's a sort of a change of, well, we're talking about a bunch of narrative, but just this idea that the BTC community sold, which was digital gold, and we're going to be the, you know, nation state replacing gold. They picked replacing gold, which is a terrible thing to choose, because I mean, in the short run, it sounds good, and it can get a lot of these sort of more financy types who at least understand that they're